Welcome to the Undefined Leader, where we reimagine leadership, redefine work, and get curious. So, research shows that your manager has as much impact on your mental health as your spouse does. We spend years and years going on dates, meeting new people, starting relationships, ending relationships in order to find the right spouse for us. Why don't we do the same for supervisors? So, today, Derek, we're going to play a game. We're going to pretend that we are on a speed dating event and we're speed dating supervisors. And what questions would we ask them? And what would we look for in finding our ideal supervisor? Are you up for it?
Yeah, let's do it. I'm a little scared about the idea of speed dating supervisors, but yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready for the game.
Let's see how it goes. Okay, let's say you sat down, the first supervisor is in front of you. What is a question you would ask them?
And right, I just so we're clear with our audience, like the context here, right, is rethinking maybe that what we ask in interviews, right? So I want to be in the right mindset
Yes.
for this. Okay, so I think where I might start is asking them how would they define good leadership.
That's good. What are you looking for in their response?
One, I'm just curious, right? Because like as we've gone through, on different episodes, there's different styles, different methods, different philosophies. So it might not even be that I'm necessarily at this point looking for anything. I'm just curious. Like how are they going to articulate in in their view good leadership? And even what would separate good from not good leadership. So I think I'm open to curiosity on their ability to articulate their case for what they think is good leadership.
Okay, that's good. So just being curious of what comes to their mind and how they define leadership and their leadership. What would be a red flag? Let's say they're defining it and they say something and you're like, ooh, skip, next.
Maybe if they start to stray into more of like the authoritarian styles of leadership, where it's like I speak first, and or things like
Hmm.
that, or as the leader I solve everyone's problems, or I give all the directions and then I expect everyone to just go and do it. Maybe if they started to stray into that realm, I don't know. What do you think? If you're a leader and a manager and a supervisor, if someone you were interviewing someone and they asked you that question, like
Hmm.
how would you in that context like go about answering that?
Answering it, or well,
Yeah.
let me say it this way. The things that if I'm listening to the person's answer, the red flags for me would be if they use a lot of I statements, me,
Okay.
myself, I. It's like all about them. I agree with you. It's like a very authoritarian if they start saying, this is how we do it. And you can tell that they're not very curious in hearing perspectives of other people. Um, Also, and I've actually heard this sentence. An actual manager said this sentence. They said, well, if people just listen to me, I would be such a great manager.
That's
It's like,
funny.
what? That's the whole point of leadership is
Yeah,
getting
it's
people
funny.
to listen to you. And
And
so, but it tells, yeah, go ahead.
well, I was just gonna say what's funny is if they were actually a good leader, people would listen to them.
Yes. And so if someone said that to me when they were answering that, that's a red flag. And I'd be like, next, speed dating, going on to the next leader. Because again, it shows me that um, for that person, what management and leadership looks like is people listening to them. And it's their job to listen to them just because I have the title. And so basically, my answer to answer your question, my answer to that question would be the opposite of everything I just said. It'd be focused on, I'm very focused on like coaching versus telling, collaborative approach. I would probably give some examples of projects that we worked on as a team and like how my leadership played into that role. That's the answer I would give.
Okay, so then two questions. So, one again, since you have a lot of experience as a hiring manager, how would you feel about the candidate that you're interviewing if they ask that question? And then the second question is, what would be your opening question or lead question that you would give if you were being interviewed?
Yeah, I think it's a great question to get started. Gives you insight into where the person's mind is at and what they truly think leadership is. So I think it's a really good question. I would appreciate that being asked that question. Um, my first question that I would ask a supervisor would be, tell me about yourself. It is such a simple thing to say, but I love starting any interview that way because it's so broad that the person can really tell you whatever they want to say about themselves. And it tells you where their priorities lie, and what they choose to tell you versus maybe there's like sometimes people go into their hobbies, sometimes people go into um their day to day, and sometimes people just focus on the title that they have and their experience, and it's all about them. And so it really tells me a lot. But so let's say the introduction is done, so tell me about yourself is done. I think my first question would be, when was the last time you got feedback from someone on your team? And what did the feedback entail, and how did you react to it?
That's coming in strong. That's a good question.
Or speed dating. I don't have
Yeah,
time. Let's
we don't have
move
a lot of
on. I'm
time.
not gonna waste my time for the wrong supervisor.
Yeah, and also too. Speaking of time, sitting on the interviewing side and doing interviews, I typically like to start an interview with like a tell me about yourself type of question, like you were talking about. And I have a bit of a pet peeve when that turns into a long answer.
Mm,
Like I've had it where it's like this 5, 6, 7 minute type of thing. So like I could have this appreciation for someone who can answer that question in like a very succinct and intentional way, right? Where they can kind of like identify important things versus just like this. Well, I was born, here, and then I went, and it's just like the whole history of the life. So I think you said it's a really simple question, but I think there's a vast amount of skill that goes into answering that
mhm.
question.
Well, also, it shows what you're looking for in their answer. So for you, Derek, you value communication, clear
Mhm.
communication. Uh, and so it makes sense that you have a pet peeve of someone that's just going down their history and just telling you about everything that's not important, versus what you're looking for in a leader at that point is someone that is able to get to the point, being able to prioritize what information is relevant or not right now, and then
Reasonable.
communicating that in a very concise way. So it makes sense that that's a pet peeve and that's what you're looking for in your interview or speed dating round as well.
Yeah, because I will almost say that the answer to that first question determines a lot in what I'm thinking of the candidate. It's not a make or break, right? But it from a first impression standpoint, it influences a lot of what I think of them. Their ability to answer the
Hmm.
tell me more about yourself question.
Hmm. Okay, so tell me more about yourself. Tell me about your leadership style. And then I brought in, tell me the last time you received feedback and how did you handle it? What's another
Yeah.
question we would ask for?
I was thinking about a question somewhere along the lines of like, describe for me the culture that you're trying to build with this team, or describe to me the culture that you built with this team, kind of depending on the context appropriate, of the position and everything. But I'd be curious, one, to see, is there any intentionality? Like, is it something that they think about and are intentionally doing it? Because I know a lot of leaders who don't think about that aspect.
Hmm.
Like culture is just sort of it just is what it is, type of byproduct. And they haven't really thought of intentionally trying to build something. So I'd be curious about
Hmm.
even just how they thought about that question or how they approached it.
Hmm. And are they able to communicate it well? Because if they're not able to communicate it well, that means that's probably not the culture. Even though they're using some words, if you're not able to very clearly say, this is the team that I have built, this is the team that I'm trying to build, this is the culture, then it's probably not happening.
Yeah.
So
Or
it's probably not a priority for the leader.
yeah. Or if the answer is completely aspirational, of
Mhm.
like, well, why aren't we there yet? It's maybe like a follow-up, like what's keeping us from being there, or maybe kind of getting into that type of a realm
Mhm.
too.
Another question I would ask is, especially if we're in an interview, I would say, let's say you hire me and 30 days in, you say, I am so happy I hired Alex. She is killing it. What would that look like? And then after that answer, I'd say, okay, now let's say it's a year in, and you're just saying, she was the best hire that we could have made. The team is so much better because of her. What does that look like?
That's
And what
good.
I'm looking for here is I've been in so many positions where a leader is hiring without being very clear of what the role is and what the expectations are. And let me tell you, it is not a good place to be as an employee when your leader doesn't even know what winning looks like for you. And so, are they able to clearly say, these are the things that we're looking for? This is the very clear expectation that we have for your role, and here's the impact that you're going to make overall on the team and the company. If they're not able to communicate that, next, cutthroat,
Yeah,
apparently.
I like it. Yeah, that's a good question. Um, when you ask a question like that, are are you sort of thinking of like, hey, I have my values. Like, how am I going to ask some different questions sort of underneath the umbrella of each one, just to see where the alignment maybe is, or if we're sharing the same type of values? Is that kind of how, like, from an overall strategy standpoint with your questions? Because everything you said made me think of that. Of like,
Yes.
is that kind of like what you're thinking?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's just like if you're going on a date and you don't know what kind of relationship you want to have or what you're looking for in a partner, it's hard to identify then, is this a good partnership or not, until it's too late or whatever, right? And so it's the same situation going into an interview and having that relationship with your supervisor is I need to be clear on what kind of leader do I want to have? What do I
Yeah,
value in a team? What do I value in a culture? And then I ask questions to uncover if they align with the values that I have or not. And so,
yeah,
like that first question I asked about the feedback, what I'm looking for there is, do they receive feedback from their team members? Because if they're not receiving feedback, then it's probably an authoritarian style of leadership. People may not be feeling comfortable and safe to give feedback and ask questions, then do the
yeah.
hard work. And that's not the person I am. I can't keep it to myself. I don't want to keep it to myself, and I want to give feedback. And I want to work for someone that is actively seeking feedback and wanting to grow at the same time.
They can
But
take
if you
the feedback.
go, yes, and take the feedback without, chopping your head off. Um, so that's what I value, and that's why I asked that question. Because
Okay.
people say a lot of good stuff. Like you can't go in and just say, "Are you an authoritarian style leadership?"
Well,
They
y-
know the answer is no, even if
yeah,
they are.
they,
So they're probably gonna be like, "No," but then you realize, oh, they definitely are.
yeah, that made me, because I don't know if this is like if I should spill the beans here of like how the ingredients are made, but we like to have kind of like authentic, spontaneous conversations in this podcast. So it's not like we sat and planned out, here's all the questions I'm going to bring up on this, right? We're just reacting and kind of trying to be authentic. So like I didn't think of this realm of questions until you just said that, and now it's made me think of some other like different questions. Because like for me, something that came to my mind is I want to be able to find out, are they a micromanager? Like and
Mm,
we've done episodes and talked about this, right? That is something that I do not want from like my leader or my supervisor. But to your point, if I just come out and say like, hey, do you micromanage, or are you a micromanager? They know that no one's the biggest micromanager is never gonna say yes, I'm a micromanager. So you have to be able to ask a question that uncovers it, right?
mm-hmm.
So then it made me think of, okay, well, maybe a question for me would be something like, what kind of decisions do you expect others to make without you?
That's a
Or,
good one.
um, how do you make sure that, how do you balance, trusting your team members versus supporting them?
Mhm.
Or if maybe kind of align with your same question, like if someone has a different idea than you or takes a different approach than what you would do, like how do you, like what happens in that
Mhm.
scenario? I don't know if that's uncovering it, but again, we're kind of on the fly here with coming up with these.
No, I think that's good. Another way you can ask the question too is, let's say there's a project that multiple people are working on. How do you manage the project to make sure that it gets done and deliverable? How often do you talk to the people that are working on the project?
Hmm.
Do you prefer like scheduled meetings? Do you prefer just slacking? Like Slack or whatever your Teams or whatever that you're using? Do you prefer impromptu? Hey, give me an update. Because what I've realized is micromanagers, they don't wait a week to the scheduled meeting usually. They are talking to you every single day and slacking your teamsing you or, hey, can you jump on real quick? Let's talk about this project. What have you done so far? Are you going to do this tomorrow? And so
Yeah.
you can
What's the
ask very
update? What's the update?
specific.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can ask. So you can say even like, let's pretend I get hired, I'm working on a project. How would you expect me to communicate updates on my tasks with you? Like you
Let's,
can get
yeah,
pretty
really
detailed and
understanding their communication style, right?
mhm,
Which then, like you said, you could uncover that they're a more authoritarian style. You could also uncover that they're a more hands-off, laissez-faire, and there's it's not necessarily like if we're not look we don't want authority. It doesn't necessarily mean that we want laissez-faire either, right? Because then we
mhm,
might not be getting like the support that we feel we might need, especially if we're maybe moving into like a newer type of role where we know we're going to need to be mentored a little bit or trained. We maybe don't want someone that's just going to throw us into the deep end also and be like
mhm,
completely hands off.
mhm. I agree. So what are some other things that we value? And let's try to come up with some questions that we would ask in the speed round.
Well,
Um,
I'll
mhm,
throw it to you to come up with the question, but I know like especially if people listen to our last two episodes that you want a leader that's very self-aware.
mhm.
So how would you find that out?
Oh, I love this question, and I ask it in every interview that I'm a part of. Um, I said the question is, what's the question? I haven't done an interview in a while. Now I forgot. Um, what is the biggest misconception that people have about you, and why do you think
Okay.
they think that? And so what that and it really tells me everything I need to know about that person, how self-aware they are. Sometimes they'll respond with, "Oh, I'm a perfectionist. I work too hard." It's like, "Well, then do you?" Like that's not a misconception, but then sometimes they come in hard and they're very authentic and self-aware of, well, when I first became a leader, people feared me and
Mhm.
there was this perception of I'm scary. And I had to really reflect on why that is and X, Y, and Z. That's a really good answer for me because now you're not only self aware, but they're also aware of how others perceive them and they're willing to work on it.
There's there's maybe some empathy there too because maybe not only aware, but they also maybe understand why people would feel that way too,
Hmm.
right?
And
So
care
that
enough
is also,
to change it
yeah, so they're
or
uncovering some
communicate it
empathy.
better. Hmm.
Mhm. What about, and that kinda leads into another one, what about emotional intelligence? Because obviously we talk about that all the time. We value that, so we're probably looking to find, a leader that has emotional intelligence. So I think there's a little bit there with that question too,
Hmm.
of understanding why people would react with different emotions, to them. But, what else under maybe the umbrella of trying to figure out how emotionally intelligent, this person is?
The first question that comes to my mind is, um, tell me about the last 5 or so people that quit from your team, that left the team for
Mm,
any reason,
yeah.
and what are some things you've learned from those experiences, that you can see as a red flag in someone before they get to the point where they resign.
Yeah,
Because
I
someone that
think
is emotionally intelligent, they're able to tell from body language, from the engagement levels of a employee, from if they're happy or not, and they actually care if they're happy or not. And so they don't let the employee get to the point where they resign, but they're able to see the red flags beforehand. And then is this leader able to jump in during those red flags and support the employee before they actually get to the point where they're resigning?
yeah, it's it's funny because I was tracking similarly, but maybe just more direct. So, so maybe your question is better because it allows for more open-endedness because I was just going a little bit more direct in my mind of like, tell me about a time that you've sensed that someone was burnt out or disengaged, and how did you handle that?
Yeah, that's good.
Because I think like if they say, "Oh, I've never," like, okay, they're like that's a bad answer, right? Of that doesn't happen on our team, right? Or
Hmm.
it's almost like an affront
Everyone's
to their
happy. Yeah.
I haven't run across that yet. Okay, well that's pretty low emotional intelligence because I can almost guarantee it happens, right?
Yes.
And then there almost has to be a little bit of humility in that answer to admit that people on their team do get burned out. So I could
Mhm.
also see like why maybe someone would not want to point to a time because they wouldn't necessarily maybe want to admit for ego reasons that they have people on their team that are disengaged or burnt out. But the
True.
reality is
Or they
it
just don't
happens
care.
and or they don't care.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, because the response might be like, well, everyone just needs to buckle up and dig in and work harder.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah.
I can guarantee you've got burned out people then.
Yes. Next. Next
Yeah,
round of speed dating.
yeah.
Um, so something that you value, Derek, is a visionary and a
Mhm.
strategic leader. What questions do you think we can ask someone to understand if they are a visionary and strategic leader?
Yeah, that's very important to me. What comes to my mind is maybe like, what's your process for making decisions? Or what's your process, that leads to making like tougher decisions or like big picture decisions or things like that. And I am going to want to hear someone that is strategic.
Mhm. I like you came up with this question a while ago, and I might butcher it, but the question was, if you were a dictator for a day, you can make any decision you want for the entire company in one
Yeah.
day. What decisions would you make?
Mm,
I really like that because I think the strategic person would probably look a little bit more long-term decision
mhm.
making. It really tells you a lot of where their priorities lay. Is it on the people? Is it on the operations? Is it on the product? Is it, whatever it is? It really tells you what they would do if they had all the power in the world. And then also it tells you how would they like, are they thinking of about the people when they're making these decisions, or is it all about them?
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. I do like that question. Yeah. And
Oh, it's your question.
yeah. uh, I also, I don't think I'm not going to speak in absolutes because this is all just anecdotal, but in what I feel like is more strategic minded people speak with more nuance, right? Because I think they know because it just always depends. Like I
Mhm,
need more info. I need, a data, so when I think even if you ask them like that dictator for a day type of question, a more strategic minded person is going to be very nuanced and they're probably going to ask some questions back first of like,
mhm,
well, do the decisions, they're gonna want like high info about that. And then they're gonna be like, well, it depends. It depends on this, it depends on that. And that to me is a more strategically minded person. And then I sort of feel like more certainty and more like absoluteness tends to fall on more like executive minded people. If we've got this spectrum of kind of like strategy and execution, and I think some people are on different sides, of that,
mhm.
like that's going to be a more execution minded people. And in a diverse team, you need all the perspectives and things like that. But like for me specifically with the leader, they're going to stress me out if they're not being strategic. So it'd be like really important for me to uncover.
Mhm. And if they're not looking at all the context, to your point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, I was just thinking, I really liked what you said of like absolute versus open-minded. And so Adam Grant, in the end of all of his episodes, he asks his people he's interviewing, what's something you've rethought recently? And I really like
Oh,
that question,
yeah.
especially for I'm looking for in a leader is someone that's able to change their mind, and
Yeah.
they're not living in a complete obsolete. They're actually learning and growing and developing and rethinking things constantly. That's a tough question. Like if someone asked me
It's,
that right now, it would be difficult for me to come up with an answer, but
yeah, it's
it's a
tough.
good one.
And even that reminds me in grad school, we took like a critical thinking class. And one of the assignments was basically like write kind of a short paper, an essay on something major that you've changed your mind about. And like people like literally dropped the class over that assignment.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
The good thing for us is we get to rethink things all the time because we're doing these podcasts, and so every
Yeah.
time we talk through it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's a good point. But a lot of people don't put emphasis on, especially once you get to a certain level, people start looking at themselves as an expert in something and needing to have all the answers versus being open-minded and learning from the next generation or a new study that comes out or just experiences in general. Uh,
Yeah.
to me, that's really important.
Yeah. Well, I think yeah, too, as people move up to in rank and status, they, they almost like they've created like this character too. And so a lot of their like styles and things like that can be too closely attached to their like identity. So that's why it's
Mhm.
always going to be hard to change your mind, is if it means also changing your identity. So someone who has an identity of being more open-minded, or skeptical or things like that. But again, we're uncovering a lot about this person and kind of where they fall in that spectrum.
Another thing I value a lot is um, life balance. Of
Mm,
how many hours you're expected to work, and not just hours, but the quality of life that you have while you're working and outside of work. I've seen so many companies that burn people out just because of the amount of hours that are being worked, and people that don't take lunch and they don't have a good quality life because of it. And so, what's a question we can ask without saying, "How many hours do you work?" Because they're always gonna be like, "Oh, well, 40
yeah.
hours." So what's a good question we can ask?
Do you do you think maybe this one comes back to a question that we were talking about earlier, where it's like describing the type of culture that you're trying to build? Like, is there a way to maybe fit that into it? Because a lot of those things that you mentioned are cultural. Like, it's in my opinion, there's no moral judgment to me or ethical judgment in a company culture where they are workaholics. They skip lunch, they work long hours. As long as it's like upfront that like this is our culture, these are our core values. Because there are people that want to work in that type of environment and like the thrill of it. And you think about like startups, that's why they might be attracted to that startup type of environment. I think where it becomes a problem if it's like a bait and switch, where
Mhm.
we're saying we have a core value of work-life balance, and then you get in there and it's absolutely not.
Just like grind,
So
grind,
yeah,
grind.
exactly. And you're like, really? You're going to take time off? Or really? You needed a sick day? Right? Even though maybe they professed work life balance. So
Mhm.
to me, the issue is the bait and switch or not being upfront, not any type of judgment about one culture or the other. So like I would hope that if you're asking questions about like the culture that you're trying to build or the vision that you have for the culture, that maybe that would come out one way or the other in that question.
Yeah. Let's pretend it didn't come out in any
Okay.
of those answers. I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind is, when's the last time you took vacation? Because a lot of the times if the culture is you can't take time off, this, it's because of the leader. The leader is working crazy hours. They're not taking time off. So even as direct as, when's the last time you went on vacation? Did you
Yeah.
check your emails while you were on vacation? How long was your vacation?
Yeah.
That
I
in
and
itself could tell you a lot.
Yeah, in consulting, with a lot of business owners, right? They'll be like, "I haven't taken a vacation in 4 years." Like, that's
And
not
they're
the
proud
flex.
of it.
Yeah,
They're
that's not
proud
the
of
flex
it.
that you think it is. That is poor leadership.
Yes.
'Cause I how comfortable have all of your employees been then trying to take time off, or and you wonder why you have burned out employees. It's 'cause you
Mhm.
as the leader don't model balance, right? And taking time off, and, and resetting and recharging. Yeah, so
Mhm.
that could be, yeah, if they're proud, about it, that they haven't taken time off, or well, that would be definitely a red flag.
Yeah.
Well, could you get there too by just, because I agree, I don't think you can just come out and say, like, how many hours, and all that, of just, like, describe, like, a typical week here, or describe, like, a typical day, at your company. Walk me through what a week looks like, or a time period. Could that be a way to get into it?
Yeah, I think so. Again, with that answer, you'd look for what do they prioritize? What are they highlighting? Um, are they saying, okay, well, I would expect you to wake up at 5 o'clock, get here at the office at 8? That to me is already sounding you care about the hours I'm working and the time that I'm sitting in my cubicle versus the effectiveness and the quality of my work. And so that is something I think that's a really good broad question. And they're not thinking about what's the right answer or not. They're just telling you exactly what type of leader they are and
Yeah.
what the culture
And
is.
Alex, I know we need to wrap. We're up on time for this one. We need to wrap this up. But I think, like, overall too, just, yeah, you can come armed, with great questions. You could, some people, like, aren't as good with in the moment, so you might need to, like, practice these questions, or kind of prepare yourself of, yes, I'm ready to ask questions, but just overall too, how receptive they are to being asked questions, I think, is a big time indicator.
Absolutely. Think of how many interviews we've been to where the employer is not giving enough time for the employees to ask questions. And so, if
Right.
we were to wrap this up, and if I was to give any advice to anyone out there that's about to go into interviews, look at it as speed dating. A lot of the times, especially right now, the employers have such a hand in how the employee is going to be hired, what resumes get through AI. There's so much going on right now. But keep in mind, going into interviews, always know what do you value? What are you looking for in this relationship? Because you're about to spend a lot of your time and most of your day with these people. And so make it count, make it be a place worth you want to be a part of. And so know exactly what type of leader and team you're looking for. Prepare questions that align with your values and look at the interview as a dating. Ask them questions. And if they're not giving you time to ask those questions, speak up and be like, hey, Derek, I would love 10 minutes of your time to ask questions to make sure that this is a good relationship both ways. And if they say no, well, I think that tells you a lot about
There
that
you go.
leader in general as well. So, all right. Good luck to anyone that is having interviews. And I think we're pretty harsh in our speed round, Derek. But speed dating, I think we'd be really picky on finding the right leader for ourselves,
As we should be.
as we should be.